What if the most powerful football club in the world, a club that had conquered Europe 7 times, was quietly killing itself from the inside? Not through bad luck. Not through bad players. But through ego, negligence, and a refusal to see what was coming. What you are about to hear is not just a football story. It is a story about what happens when greatness is taken for granted. When legends become liabilities. And when the people in charge stop caring about the future because the past feels good enough. This is the fall of AC Milan. To understand how far they fell, you first have to understand how high they stood. In 1988, AC Milan were unstoppable. Under the genius of manager Arrigo Sacchi, they had assembled one of the greatest squads ever seen in European football. Ruud Gullit, electric, dreadlocked, unplayable. Marco van Basten, arguably the most complete striker who ever lived. Frank Rijkaard, the engine that made everything work. Together, this Dutch trio turned Milan into a machine that tore through European football like nothing before it. They won the European Cup in 1989. Then again in 1990. Back-to-back. Dominant. Ruthless. Beautiful. Then came Fabio Capello. More titles. More dominance. Milan were not just winning, they were setting the standard for how football should be played. Every elite club in Europe was trying to copy them. By the time Carlo Ancelotti arrived in 2001, the greatness had not faded, it had evolved. A new generation had taken over. Paolo Maldini, the greatest defender the game has ever seen, was still marshalling the backline with an elegance that made the sport look like art. In midfield, Andrea Pirlo was conducting the game like a composer. And up front, Andriy Shevchenko was scoring goals that made defenders have nightmares. In 2003, Milan won the Champions League. In 2007, they won it again. At the final whistle in Athens, with Maldini lifting the trophy, it felt like this club would be great forever. That feeling was a lie. Behind the glory, the man who owned all of this was Silvio Berlusconi. Media mogul. Billionaire. Future Prime Minister of Italy. He had bought Milan in 1986 when they were broke and broken, and turned them into the most decorated club in the world. He loved Milan the way a man loves a crown, something to wear, something to show off, something that told the world who he was. But that was exactly the problem. Berlusconi ran Milan like a vanity project. While other clubs were quietly building infrastructures that would carry them into the next decade, youth academies, global scouting networks, modern stadiums, commercial partnerships, Berlusconi was focused on the present. On the glamour. On the trophies he could already see. There was no plan for what came after Maldini. No plan for what came after Pirlo. No plan for what came after Shevchenko. In football, if you do not plan for the future will destroy you. And that is exactly what happened. The moment that revealed everything came in the summer of 2011. And it came quietly, with barely any noise at all. Andrea Pirlo's contract at Milan had expired. The club looked at him, 31 years old, seemingly past his peak, and decided they no longer needed him. No negotiation. No attempt to keep him. They simply let him go. For free. What happened next was one of the most embarrassing moments in the history of football management. Pirlo walked across Turin and signed for Juventus. And there, rather than declining, he became reborn. In his very first season at Juventus he was the best midfielder in Serie A. He drove them to the league title. Then another. Then another. Then another. 4 consecutive championships. The man Milan had thrown away became the heartbeat of a dynasty that would go on to win 9 titles in a row. Milan had handed their greatest rival the key to the kingdom. And they had done it for free. It was not just a bad decision. It was a window into how badly the club was being run. Nobody at the top was thinking clearly. Nobody was planning. Nobody was paying attention. From 2012 onwards, the decline was not slow. It was a cliff edge. The squad that had carried Milan to glory was aging fast. Maldini had already retired. Shevchenko was gone. The replacements were not good enough. The transfer budget, once used to sign world-class talent, was shrinking every season as Berlusconi's business empire outside of football began to show serious cracks. Season after season, Milan failed to qualify for the Champions League. And this is where the real damage began, because without Champions League football, the money stops. And when the money stops, everything stops. While Real Madrid were signing Cristiano Ronaldo for a world record fee, while Manchester City were being transformed by Abu Dhabi billions, while Paris Saint-Germain were about to spend €222 million on Neymar alone, Milan were recycling aging players on reduced wages and hoping nobody noticed. Everybody noticed. The San Siro, once the most intimidating stadium in Europe, began to feel like a relic. Crumbling infrastructure. Outdated facilities. While every elite club was either building or planning a new modern arena that generated revenue 7 days a week, Milan were sharing their aging ground with city rivals Inter and arguing about what to do with it. That argument would last over a decade. It is still not fully resolved. Then came 2017. And a disaster that would nearly finish the club entirely. After 31 years, Silvio Berlusconi finally sold AC Milan. The buyers were a Chinese investment group called Rossoneri Sport Investment Lux. They arrived with big smiles, bigger promises, and almost no understanding of how football actually worked. What followed was jaw-dropping. In a single summer, the new owners spent over €200 million on transfers. Players arrived from across Europe, big names, big wages, big expectations. Leonardo Bonucci came from Juventus. Andre Silva arrived from Porto. The squad looked, on paper, like a statement of intent. On the pitch, it was a catastrophe. The performances were poor. The results were worse. And behind the scenes, the finances were completely out of control. The Chinese ownership had borrowed heavily to buy the club, and now they were spending money they did not have on players who were not performing. UEFA came knocking. Financial fair play rules existed precisely to stop this kind of reckless spending, and Milan had broken them spectacularly. The punishment was severe. AC Milan, 7-time champions of Europe, were banned from European competition. It was a humiliation that would have been unimaginable 10 years earlier. 14 months after buying the club, the Chinese ownership collapsed entirely. They could not repay their loans. The club was seized by an American hedge fund called Elliott Management, a firm that had zero interest in football, zero emotional connection to Milan, and had taken over purely to recover the debt they were owed. AC Milan, the most glamorous club in Italy, was now owned by a Wall Street debt collector. The fans had reached their limit. Protests outside San Siro became a regular sight. Banners calling for change. Social media flooded with grief and anger from supporters who had grown up watching Maldini, Pirlo, and Shevchenko and could not comprehend what their club had become. Between 2012 and 2020, Milan won 0 league titles. 0. In that same period, Juventus won 9 consecutive Serie A championships. 9. While Milan were collapsing, their rivals were building one of the greatest dynasties in the history of Italian football. The contrast was not just painful, it was humiliating. The phrase "Milan are back" became a running joke. Every summer brought new signings and new promises. Every season ended in disappointment. The cycle repeated so many times that even the most loyal fans stopped believing. But then, slowly, quietly, something shifted. Elliott management, for all their cold financial logic, did one thing that Berlusconi never truly did. They put football people back in charge of football decisions. Paolo Maldini, the greatest player in the club's history, was brought back as technical director. And Maldini, with the same calm intelligence he had shown on the pitch for 25 years, began rebuilding from the ground up. Young players started arriving. Rafael Leao, fast, unpredictable, electric. Theo Hernandez, one of the most dynamic left-backs in the world. Sandro Tonali, a young Italian midfielder who played like he had been born to wear the Milan shirt. The wage bill was cleaned up. The culture inside the club changed. And on the 22nd of May 2022, AC Milan were crowned Serie A champions for the first time in 11 years. The city of Milan erupted. Grown men were crying in the streets. It felt like a resurrection, like the sleeping giant had finally opened its eyes. But is it truly back? That is the question nobody can fully answer yet. Ownership has changed hands again. American investment group Redbird Capital now controls the club. The stadium situation is still unresolved. European dominance feels like a distant dream. The 2022 title was a beginning, but beginnings are fragile things. The fall of AC Milan is one of the most important cautionary tales in the history of sport. This was not a small club that ran out of money. This was not a team that lacked talent. This was one of the most powerful institutions in world football, and it collapsed because the people at the top confused past greatness with future security.